Ohio State's going to beat Wisconsin by 38. The receiving group is super underrated, and people are pumped for Titus Toller. We get to the community questions and comments on today's Locked On Badgers.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, what's going on, everybody? Locked On Badgers. Thank you for making this one of your first listens every single day. I am Ryan Herrings, your host of Locked On Badgers. Also want to thank BetOnline for bringing this episode to you. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. We're doing a community question and answer comment show. I've done this before. Really enjoyed it. It's a way to get everybody's comments and inputs into the show, which I really want to do to help build the community. We're bringing old friend of the show, common friend of the show, Justin Joka, on to help participate in this one. And he hasn't seen any of the questions, so we're going to shotgun them. Are you ready for this, Justin?
Yeah, I think I can handle it.
All right. And I'm going to kind of go in order of recent shows we've released. Again, I got a ton of comments. I want to continue getting all these onto the show, everybody that's done this. So if I don't get to your question, I apologize, or your comment, I apologize. But I'm going to try to work through as many as we can get. So first one, this is from friend of the show, recent guest of the show, Eat, Drink, Listen. This is in regards to the Titus Toller episode. He said, I am pumped for Toller. Went from freaking out about safety depth to feeling pretty solid about it. What do you think, Justin?
I think we need to give him a little time to get back his legs under him.
Toller.
But I love Toller being back. I think that most of us were very high on him as a player before he left. And I think he's a big add to the room. He's like getting a high 3-4, low 4-star guy who has shown that he can push to get playing time. So we know that there's at least some talent level there and that he's picking things up before he was injured because they were putting him on the field. So at this point, I am very high on it. I think he's a guy that probably has a good idea of what Leonard's looking for on the defense. So the big thing here is where is he at physically? Now, we know he's healthy. We don't know if he's been hitting the weight room. We don't know if he's kind of, back to where he needs to be physically to be able to push for playing time. There's a difference between being healthy and being, maxed out and having your strength and everything back and your speed.
Yeah, I quite frankly wouldn't expect anything from Toller this year. Yeah. But I do think the safety group as a whole, which is also kind of part of his comment here, has gone from being a giant, oh my gosh, to with the Utah transfer. Now you have Hunter Wohler in, we picked up some grad transfers, and now Toller's back as well. So maybe he can help. The depth there is much better. And Cade Yacamelli starting at safety, which we're going to get into next. So I think
still not happy about that.
but that's the next one. That's the next comment. So Dice Gaming and Sports, who's commented on a bunch of episodes we've done, I figured Yacamelli was going to start at safety anyway. And that's, if you remember when we were doing the Bucky cast, that's where I wanted him. I wanted him at safety. So I still
adamantly disagree with you.
Go ahead.
I want him at wide receiver. I think he has the ability to be a plus route runner and a guy who's a plus athlete at the position. Now, that being said, the kid that they have coming in this year has some similar traits.
Mm-hmm.
Is it
Kakahuna? Yep.
Yeah. He is. There's a lot of similar skills there, right? They're well-built guys who are very explosive and have very quick feet. And what I liked about Yacamelli is he's got choppy steps and he's very quick out of his breaks. And I think that is something that's been lacking in the wide receiver room for a while. Now we got Tretch. I'm not as worried about it. I think we had a trade-off there. I'll gladly let Yacamelli go to the other, but I think to me his highest ceiling is at wide receiver. I get it. You feel his is at safety. I think he's going to be a plus player at either side. I do think he's a guy that finds a field eventually and is a guy that, quite frankly, from a physical tools standpoint, is a guy whose ceiling is NFL player.
Yeah, he's an athletic freak show. I think neither of us really loved him being a running back. So
no,
I think we both thought receiver or safety.
I compared him to Shannon Brooks as the way his run style when I saw him, and I stand by that. I don't think that's an NFL player. I think that's a good college player, but I think that he had a higher ceiling at either safety or at wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree with that. I love him at safety just because he's a plus-size guy, great athlete. He's rangy, he's physical. I just don't think we get enough dudes on the back end like him. So this one, Alien Space, another person who has a ton of comments on the show. Really appreciate everyone who listens, and this is a way to get everybody engaged. His comments, secondary is looking very deep. Could be maybe the deepest secondary we've had under Paul Chryst.
You know, I would probably agree with that. The closest, I guess, would be the Nick Nelson.
Derek Tyndall.
Yeah, Tyndall season. We had some pretty good depth there all around on that season. I mean, 2017 was the best defense we've had.
Yeah, they were awesome.
And you know, all due respect to last year. Last year's the best run defense we've had. That was the best all around defense we had. I think there were. Well, it's just you look at some of we had more talent on the back end, and I think so. There was a little bit less on the front end, a little bit more on the back end with that. So to me, it was like it's a trade-off. I mean, you're splitting hairs. You would be happy with either one. I'll be honest. Just to throw this out there, like we've had people have had the discussion about national title stuff. Wisconsin's issue about getting to a national title is not defense. They're on par with every national title contender in terms of defensive quality, bar Georgia last year, which was a freak show. Those teams pop up once every decade or whatever. Like who was it? LSU? The decade before that had that defense that was just an absolute machine.
Gave up like 9.7 points per game.
Yeah.
I mean, it was something silly. Yeah.
Every once in a while, one of those teams jumps up and has just loaded with NFL talent that is like Wisconsin ends up statistically being slightly better in some regards. They were a better scoring defense. And I think we would say that was a more talented team. I think you'd say that Wisconsin might have been a little bit more the smart man's defense in terms of like we weren't playing on freak ability and just out athleting teams. That Georgia defense was stacked with talent. And I don't think that there was anything there that was super scheme impressive. It was just guys doing their jobs that were plus athletes and better than the guy across the field from them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I agree with your point, too, that the Wisconsin defense is typically good enough for a team to win a title. It's just always the offense that can't quite carry their water. And you agree with the Alien Space there. The secondary is probably the deepest under Chryst with the grad transfers, injury people coming back, Cade Yacamelli, a couple 4-star safety recruits with Wohler and Austin Brown. Like, there's a lot there.
We have the best size at corner I think we've had.
Al Ashford, yes.
Well, just I'm even talking Alex Smith and between him and Shaw.
Shaw's a little shorter though than I thought he was.
But if you have two 5'11" starters,
sure,
then that is more than what Wisconsin traditionally has had at the spot. I think Tyndall was 5'9", maybe 5'10".
Tyndall was bigger than that, but you're not running on a guy like Antonio.
But he was a slight guy too. I think Smith
Shelton
is actually a solidly built kid, and Shaw seems like he's pretty big too.
Yeah. Let's finish this segment on this one. Also from Eat, Drink, Listen. He's a little concerned running back position next year, a little thin. And I think
we have
let me set the table with that one where we didn't pick up a guy in last year's class, right? And part of the reason people said, no, it's okay. It was the thought that Cade Yacamelli was going to be a running back. And I always said, that's a mistake. He's a safety.
He is. Well, I mean, I think we both agree. In general, we felt like that was a cop-out.
Yeah.
Like that was we missed, so we're going to shove this kid in here. We're going to put, not that he's a square peg into a round hole, because he could play the position, and I think he could do some things there for sure. Like I think he would have been Groshek on steroids. Like he would have been a great third down back for us. I don't want to waste that on him because I think he can be a plus starter at safety, or I think he could be a very good wide receiver if given the time to develop there.
Agreed.
And I think what we do need to do with them right now is they need to stop moving around. Wherever you're putting him, put him there and let him grow. Because 100%. He is not a guy who has been locked in at a position coming to this point. So you need to give him an opportunity to get the reps and experience under him so that he can start to let the physical tools really show.
So how do you feel about running back depth chart? Are you good with it? I mean, Braelon Allen, you have 2 more years of Braelon Allen. That's the key.
We have Allen, Julius Davis next year. The 2 kids coming in, which you and I would probably agree. I never feel comfortable leaning on true freshmen at running back. For every James White, there's 10 kids who need 3 years in the system before they start showing something.
Yeah, 100%.
It's possible they could be studs. I'm not discounting that fact. They very well could be. But I think that we look at both these guys. These are more ball clay guys than they are guys who are ready made to jump into a system and be ready to roll.
Yeah. So we're a little light, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at least they brought in 2 this year, and you can always get a transfer.
I think I'll kind of be shocked if we don't grab a transfer at running back. Just somebody who's a little bit older.
Year.
Yeah.
I really did,
there's always bodies at that. Like you can find a guy who can be a solid backup running back. They're not looking for it. And in this case, for us, we're probably looking at a third back. Like it's going to be I think Davis will be a solid backup next year. Will he be dynamic? I don't think he'll necessarily be dynamic, but I think he'll be a guy that can go out there and get you 5 yards of carry.
Well, it's also a position where there's been injuries. Like Davis has been injury prone. Even this year, Isaac Guerendo, you can't count on him. I mean, we would love for Guerendo to explode.
I think the big thing is you could say is it's light this year. We don't know what we have in these guys. I love that they're saying Malusi is going to be ready, but anytime you're coming off an injury like that, like who was the kid that we had, the tailback that was from Kenosha, same school as
you're talking about Vontae.
Yeah, Vontae.
Yeah,
Vontae
tore his knee up 3 times.
I liked his film better than Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
And he just could not stay healthy. And that's the fear that you have when somebody has had an injury like this. There's always a chance that happens. And we've definitely seen guys who have that where they start to compensate or whatever, and you end up taking out the other side, or you end up injuring the same knee. And it's like, this is why like people are touting Mo Ibrahim from Minnesota. And they're talking about, he's ready to go. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's like, this is an injury that's
the answer.
I mean, an Achilles injury, there is no chance that guy is going to be 100% to start the season.
Well, and to your point, and to wrap up on here, because we got to take a break and get into the next segment. But to your point, Braelon Allen was banged up last year. Malusi's coming off injury. Julius Davis has been injured. Isaac Guerendo can't stay healthy. Like, there's not a lot there that you would put under the incredibly safe stock category. But we got to stop there because we got a ton more questions. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit about potentially the underrated receiver group. Paul Chryst, did he need Brett Bielema? A couple interesting comments on that both directions. But first, today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs and information. It is an easy-to-use website, something that we use on Locked On a lot because it has all your sports information, plus online sports betting, plus Vegas online games, all in one spot. And it's not just what's happening now. Futures is a great time. Baseball pennant races are going on. Basketball trade deadline the basketball offseason going on. Where's Kevin Durant going to land? That's obviously going to shake up any type of odds. NFL's we're 35 days away. Who do you think is going to win the divisions, the conference championships? It's a great time. All of those futures. We talked a ton about Wisconsin over under 8.5. And it's, again, not just sports betting. There's sports news, online Vegas games. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. I want to thank everybody for making Locked On one of your first listens every day. And we're just going to keep banging through these questions that are questions and comments from the listeners, from you all. And I really appreciate it. We're going to bring Justin back on. And let's get into this one. So we, Scott and I, had an episode we talked about, did Paul Chryst need Brett Bielema to give him a little bit of an aggressive bump? Like, did he benefit from having a more aggressive coach on the staff like that? Nathan Lindowski, who's listened to the show a lot, said, couldn't agree more. Real devil's advocate view I've had on Paul for the last few seasons, which I hope isn't true, is that I think a majority of the on-field success was that due to having just great running backs. Since then, mediocrity.
I think that's obvious. We have not had a passing game that has been dynamic since he's been back. We have an adequate passing game in a couple of seasons. Look at the statistics. Like anytime you get in this argument, the argument that is made by fans who think that the passing game is fine is that statistically it's good. It's fine for Wisconsin. Well, okay. Some people have a higher standard than what historically has been Wisconsin's offense, which I want to get people to understand the fact that was 20 years ago. Like, we're looking at it when nobody was throwing a ton. Now, there were teams like Hawaii and whatever back in the day that were throwing a lot that were the outliers. Now, the traditional teams, for the most part, I would say, what do you think the average is probably for football in college in Division I? I would say it's 30 plus.
I don't know if it's 30. You're talking about, yes, but it's definitely more than what we've been doing.
Yeah.
And again, the point is, has Paul Chryst just rode a great defense and a great generational running back?
He definitely has. I made the point to you. You and I have discussed this a few different times, just offline. And it's one of the things comments that I love to make on this. In Paul Chryst's time back, he's had 2 seasons where he's cleared 30 points per game. 2 seasons. In Gary Anderson's 2 seasons here, he had both seasons over 30 points per game. And they would rank, if you combine them all, number 1 and number 3 in points per game, adding in Paul Chryst's numbers.
Mm-hmm.
He has had, last year he averaged 25 points per game. We have had multiple seasons, I think, in the 28 or less. And for a team that has the level of talent that Wisconsin has, that is unacceptable. Like, I get we should not be. You figure there are cream puff teams that we've played in some of these seasons. We haven't let off every season by facing off against a Bama or LSU or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that hard to get over 30 points per game. Like, you figure you have a couple blowouts to start the season. And the problem is Wisconsin doesn't even blow teams out really anymore in the non-conference.
No, not like they used to.
We beat overmatched teams. We beat them
34-3
or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is a game that we would have won 49-3 or whatever, in Bielema's time.
Under Bielema's. Yeah. Although, to be fair, we almost lost to Cal Poly Institute of Technology under Bielema's era. Not his finest team or finest moment.
Yeah.
But here's the counterpoint to that. So I got this from John, and he said, Badger fans should realize how much worse it could be. What does it matter how the sausage is made as long as it produces 8, 9, 10 win seasons? Paul Chryst is the head coach and deserves the credit for that. I think there's something to be said there.
Okay.
I see you don't like that, but listen, let me rephrase kind of what he's saying. The captain should get the credit for a winning program, right? The captain is. So what does it matter
I'm not
so much
disputing that, but okay.
If the passing game is bad, if the team is still winning.
I will give Paul Chryst the credit for winning games. I can also be critical of the fact that his offense has not been good. And his offense has not been good. It's very underwhelming for a team. Here's the argument to be made for his offense. You have an elite defense on the other side of the ball. You can afford to take risks. You can afford to be aggressive because your defense leads the nation or is normally in the top 10 for getting 3 and outs. So what does that mean? That means if you make a mistake and give the ball up and give the other team the ball with time, your defense will probably go out there and shut them down.
Mm-hmm.
If you're more aggressive and can keep your team on the field rather than us getting 3 or outs because we have decidedly conservative starts to drives, and that's the issue that I've had is we'll have a 10-play scoring drive, 15-play scoring drive. We'll also have 2 or 3 other drives leading up to that. There are 3 and out or 1 first down and we're out because we're so inconsistent if we can't run the football that we can't do anything.
There's no backup plan.
Exactly.
There's nothing else that works if the running game gets shut down against good teams.
You can afford to be balanced or even a little pass heavy to start games and then lean back into it when you get your lead when you're comfortable. That's what Ohio State, Bama, all the top teams have been doing for the last decade plus. We get way ahead.
People certainly argue that we shouldn't be considered on that tier. Like
no, we're not.
Ohio State, Bama have receivers that we will never have.
But when we're playing MAC level schools, that's the way the game should be played out. We should be playing our traditional offense. It should be balanced. We should be attacking them, putting them away, and then salt the game away.
Yeah, I agree to that. Yeah,
that's not running up the score. That is at that point we're salting it away if we're just running it. Then you'll get your 50 carries. What you'll have differently is yards per attempt should be up. You should have more dynamic pass plays involved in it, and you get the good work in rather than, hey, it's 3rd and 5. Let's throw a 6-yard pass to get the first down. We're going to throw a slant route here, and it's like.
All right, I gotta break you out of this. Every conversation is going back to Paul Chryst and his offense, which I love. I love you for your singular focus on this. Let's get into some other questions regarding other positions. Yeah, Dice One in gaming again. Great commenter on the show. Wisconsin's receiving core is going to be very underrated. DK best receiver, but Bell, Allen super high ceiling. Speedy Stephen Bracey comes back. Ingram moves over. Keontae Lewis looks like a good transfer. Comments on Dice's comment there.
This is the most physical tools I've seen in the receiver room since I've been following the team.
I like it.
Now, there's a difference between physical tools and being able to produce. We see this all the time with young receivers that get to the NFL. You get there, you get to a new level from high school or whatever. The studs, the guys who are 4 stars and 5 stars, they're ready to go ready to roll right away. They're the guys that have the dynamic level of athleticism that they don't need. They can get away with some of the stuff that other guys can't. I like the skill sets we're recruiting because they have some of that to them. Guys like the kid from UCLA, who I think is a plus speed guy, but also has really good size. Keontae Lewis, as well as who's the one from Michigan that last year we were very high on?
Oh, the recruit, the 2023 kid, Tommy Mcintosh.
No. Yes, but him too. But the one who played last year.
Vinny, from Michigan. Oh, Marcus Allen. Sorry, the one that committed to Michigan. Yeah,
for whatever reason, could not remember his name. He's another guy, good size, good speed. I think he's a plus possession receiver, meaning he's a guy who probably could do that very well. But I think there's some upside to him stretching the field too. Tommy Mcintosh, I know that he's Jesse Temple's crush.
Yeah,
I'm with you there, buddy. A 6'5" wide receiver that can run, and has that type of length, and
he actually is 6'5", which is great. Like that was his recruiting height, but it's also what he's listed on the roster for what it's worth. So
that is a guy that makes it very complicated for even a 6-foot corner to try and play jump ball with him because he doesn't have to get up that high. He doesn't have to be perfect in his timing where the defensive player does. And with that size, he has a significantly easier time blocking out somebody to try and go up and get the ball. You're just bigger. It's like watching a center take on a shooting guard in basketball for a rebound. The big guy is going to get the ball.
I agree with you. I like the position. I think it's a really deep position, and it's better than what we've seen recently.
And we didn't even get to the guy who they're talking about they think is going to be the number 2 wide receiver in Skylar Bell.
A level of explosiveness that's a little unique too. Maybe a little like Kendrick Pryor, but able to separate better.
He's got a bigger body. I think he's a little more
bigger. I think he can separate better, but fast.
His strength is a big deal. Yeah.
Lee Herschel, pretty comment about the offensive line. Deep offensive line, right tackle position to watch. I believe Bosted will have this line playing at high level. I believe you'll see Ingram implement short passing game that'll help both Mertz and the young receivers. So comment on Bosted improving the offensive line and Ingram bringing in more of a short passing game.
You and I have discussed this plenty. I love Bob Bosted.
Yeah.
His view on offensive linemen is exactly what my view is. I want the meanest guys on the field to be our offensive line. Why? Because when they get punched in the mouth and they get beat, they're the guys that want to go out there and get angry and then will annihilate the guy across from them. That line that we had in 2010 was a mean line.
Yeah.
Guys like Zeitler and them, they wanted to destroy Ohio State when they played them.
It's possible Rudy was just too nice, right? I mean, it's possible that mentality, and God, because that also helped in recruiting, right? It worked for him in recruiting.
Well, we've heard the stories about Bosted where players were like, yeah, I hated playing under him when it was there, but I respect because when I got to the pros, there were all the things that they wanted me to know. I already knew.
That's a great point.
Because he did it. And I hated him for it, but he made me good. And I think that's the type of coach he is. He's a guy that you're going to absolutely hate playing under because he's going to push you so hard. But I think that that's going to maximize what guys have. And I don't think that to me is where the struggle has been. I don't think we've been maximizing our linemen. I think we've recruited better. We've made them B versions of themselves rather than A versions of themselves.
Yeah, you and I agree. I think that's a home run. Coming up, everybody, we're going to talk about some comments about Ohio State 48-10. Some predictions from commenters. We're going to talk about that.
We leave our defense.
A little Nebraska talk and a little USC Taka Curtis comments as well. So that's coming up next. So Justin, let's get into it. I'm just going to start here. A Kefo, sorry, I think it's a Kefo commented. I made the quick prediction. OSU 48, Wisconsin 10. And then Jamie chimed in and said Buckeyes would have to fall apart for Wisconsin to win. They're in different galaxies.
I'm gonna punt on the second one because until we see them actually play, I have no idea. If Wisconsin's offense is significantly better this year, they can play with Ohio State.
But I don't feel like you think it will be. I feel like you're not confident in that.
I don't. I think I need to see Mertz play at a high level.
Yeah.
I have not seen it. And that's where I'm settling on this. I want him to be good. And this is the thing that people get get upset. I'm very negative on him, but it's like I'm not really negative. I've seen what I've seen, and he hasn't given me a reason to start touting him.
And let's be fair. I think what you're saying is critical, but it's fair. And you're also not rooting against him. You're not rooting for him to fail.
I want him to turn into an NFL quarterback. Listen, the only way Wisconsin's making a national title is if he's going to have to start putting up borderline Russell Wilson numbers. That is how Wisconsin gets to a national title or a playoff berth. Is a quarterback who is dynamic enough to the point where if you shut down our run game, it doesn't matter. We're going to pass it on you. And
don't you go back into Paul Chryst passing offense, Justin. It's Ohio State 48, Wisconsin 10. That's the comment.
Listen, that's the comment, and that person, they need to have their head examined.
Okay.
In the last 20 years, how many times has Ohio State gone for 40+ in Wisconsin? Maybe once, twice.
Not many. How many times?
They had the 59-0.
I was just going to say.
And I think that's the only time I can remember them being 40+.
I mean, how many times has
Ohio
State beat us by 38, right? Outside of that championship.
Well, that's what I'm saying. With the Wisconsin defense the way it is, listen, this is probably going to be the best defense until the playoffs that Ohio State's going to see. And yes, I say that looking at Notre Dame on that schedule. I think Wisconsin's defense is going to be that level again this year. I actually think the pass rush will be better than last year. So from that standpoint, and I think we both agree that we like the secondary better.
And the defensive line is going to be good. It's going to be solid. I don't think the pass rush will be better. I think without Chanel, it's not going to be.
I don't think it's going to be as necessary to have two guys carry it. I think it's going to be more balanced, where we'll see more guys. But for one, I think the opposite outside linebacker position is going to have more production. I would be shocked if we don't get 9 or 10 sacks out of that side, which means we need less from the middle linebackers and they can focus more on coverage.
Yeah, I can see that. Let's wrap up on a couple more quick ones. So this is from Rich Walsh, who's also a really good listener. And I'm just going to make this one. We're not going to spend time on this because you'll go off on this one. But he said, listen, it's okay to be boring. He brings up the Nebraska comparison. Chryst is 65-23. That's not mediocre. And I'm quite frankly tired of people running their mouth. So I just want to throw that one out there because I want to acknowledge Rich, but I feel like we've done enough Paul Chryst on this one. Let's get into Taka Curtis. So a couple quick comments here. Dr. Banoob said, why did Taka Curtis go to USC? It's because they win national titles and Wisconsin fans don't know what that is. Go SC. I just want to say it's going to be super fun having that type of SC fan in the conference.
Cool.
Because we all could use more like USC type elitists.
So let's enjoy this when USC gets their teeth kicked in by Ohio State, like Wisconsin's beginning it. And then we can be like, oh, hey, what's it like not to go to the playoff because you have to play against a real top 4 team?
How fun is that? Welcome to the Big Ten.
Can't beat up on the Pac-12 anymore, which has Oregon as its toughest team.
Listen,
an Oregon team that needed Wisconsin to basically give the game up against them 3 years ago in the Rose Bowl?
Yes.
We turned the ball over like the most ridiculous plays ever to get them back.
Let's just be really honest. Like, I think USC is a great program. It's a great banner to add to the collection of flags that the Big Ten has. Let's be honest. Going from playing Oregon State, Washington State, Arizona State, UCLA, Cal, and now you're going to Kinnick, you're going to Madison, you're going to Ann Arbor, you're playing Penn State, and you're also going to get a Rutgers, Illinois, Northwestern, but you're stepping up a major way. A major way.
The Pac-12, I think. Let's break this down very quickly. What are the top 4 teams in the Pac-12?
NA. Not applicable. There's not because
but I'm saying what the difference that we're switching.
I'm saying
so you had Utah, Oregon.
It's Utah, Oregon,
and then a Washington team that's kind of stubbed its toe and has taken a step back.
Utah's really good. Okay, they're really physical.
And they've beaten up on USC.
But that's kind of my point when I said NA is you can't even really identify. I feel great about these 4 schools.
Yeah. Okay, well let's put it this way. Would you take Utah against Wisconsin? I think that
probably.
I think it's a coin.
Utah's better than Wisconsin this year, probably.
Yeah, I think you'd give us the defense and you'd give them the offense.
But their defense is also really good, and you feel better about their offense. So
the gap is closer.
If you look at it for the next 10 years, who are you taking? Wisconsin or you're taking Wisconsin?
Probably 7 out of 10.
100%. So I do think that there's an element of like elitist use, and of course there is with every.
There's an arrogance.
But
I mean, it's easy to get arrogant when you haven't been relevant for the last 15 years.
Here's the next two SC comments. I wanted to read these as well. SC fan, this is from a guy named Maine. SC fan here, always respected your program. Glad to come into the conference. And this is from Gabe Greenwell. SC fan here, I just want to say so much respect to Wisconsin and their program. We're going to need a bunch of guys like Taka Curtis if we're going to be able to line up against you guys and not get punched in the mouth. So there is at least a level of respect for the physicality there, which I like. And I think we're really running out of time here. I want to leave it on this
just
one.
To play in on this.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
On that, a comment on that quick. Wisconsin's defense is better than the defense that they faced when we beat them in that bowl game. Mm-hmm. Now, I think it's gone up a couple notches, and they can definitely hang with SC. Unless SC gets real tough in the trenches, it ain't happening. And that's where Ohio State beats up on Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. Like we can hold the passing game down to an extent. Once they get the running game going, we're in trouble because we have to start kind of keeping the defensive linemen on their heels. I mean, look at it. We played Fields in the 2 games against them in 2019. We had 10 sacks.
I know.
And still gave up huge points because they got the running game going and they had a quarterback that could prolong or hold off the pass rush and make plays.
Yeah, those Ohio State quarterbacks have gutted us. I mean, those dudes have just gutted us, man. All right, we're gonna wrap it up here. I've got like 8 more questions, but we're already past time, so we're gonna continue doing these shows. We got good feedback from the last one, and it's a good way. So just keep leaving comments, everybody. We really appreciate it, and we'll keep throwing shows on here. Get your comments into the show. And with that, we're gonna call it a wrap. But appreciate everyone listening. As always, Justin, appreciate you stepping on.
Anytime, man.
All right, later, everybody. On Wisconsin.